The pyre stood in the Campus Martius in the winter of the year 169, tall as the roof of a house, and upon it lay the body of Lucius Verus, co-emperor of Rome, dressed in the purple and the gold, his hair oiled, his face composed, his hands folded upon a chest that no longer rose. Marcus Aurelius, sole emperor now, stood before it in the cold, and the priests began the rites, and the crowd waited for the tears of a man who had been raised as brother to the dead. But Marcus did not weep as the crowd expected, and neither did he look away. He looked instead at the fire. You must understand what this scene contained, because it contained more than a funeral. It contained a lifetime of arrangement. Lucius Verus had been adopted alongside Marcus by the Emperor Antonines Pius at the direction of Hadrian before him, and the two had been raised as brothers within the imperial household, tutored by the same rhetoricians, dressed in the same purple, prepared for the same throne. When Antoninus died in the year 161, Marcus had insisted, against the will of the Senate, that Lucius rule beside him as full co-emperor. For 8 years they had shared the title. Lucius had gone east to fight the Parthians and had returned with victory and with plague. Now Lucius was dead, felled by a stroke in a carriage on the road from Altinum, and the plague he had brought back was moving through the city like a slow tide. And Marcus stood before the pyre of the man he had called brother, and he did not weep. The crowd noticed, the historians noticed, and Marcus, who was already at work upon the private notebooks we now call the Meditations, would return again and again in those pages to the question the pyre had asked him. What is the correct response in the soul of a rational being to the burning of a body? What is the correct response to purple dye? What is the correct response to ash? The principle we consider tonight is one that Marcus states more plainly than almost any other in his notebooks, and it is also one that modern readers most often misunderstand. He calls it in different passages by different names. He speaks of seeing things as they are. He speaks of stripping away the additions the mind makes to bare appearances. He speaks of the equal treatment of what men call good fortune and what men call ill fortune. But at the center of these formulations sits a single exercise, one he practiced with a discipline that borders on the severe, and which we may call the equal treatment of praise and dissolution. Hear it in his own words, in the translation of George Long. In the 6th book of the Meditations, Marcus writes to himself, "Of the whole earth, a very small part is inhabited, and of that part, how small a portion is inhabited by men who differ from one another, either in body or in mind. Bear in mind also how small a part of it, even after being known, retains a memory of thee." And in the 4th book, still more plainly, Alexander the Great and his groom, when they died, came to the same. And again, in the 8th, death is such as generation is, a mystery of nature, a composition out of the same elements, and a decomposition into the same. The principle is this: praise and dissolution are two forms of the same material. The purple robe and the ash beneath it are two moments in one process. To be exalted by the crowd and to be reduced to bone are not opposites in the Stoic view. They are near neighbors. They are, in fact, so close in kind that the wise man must train himself to receive them with the same steadiness of mind. This is not a doctrine of indifference in the modern sense. Marcus does not tell you to feel nothing. He does not tell you to become cold. What he tells you throughout the notebooks is that the additions the mind makes to bare appearances are the source of most human disturbance, and that the practice of the philosopher is to see the thing itself without the addition. A purple robe is dyed wool, a funeral pyre is burning wood, and a body that has ceased its motion. The crowd's cheer is a movement of air. The historian's record is ink upon papyrus. These are the things themselves. What men add to them in the way of longing and dread is the addition. The addition is where the trouble lives. And the equal treatment of praise and dissolution is the exercise by which the addition is removed. To understand how difficult this exercise was for the man who practiced it, one must understand where he practiced it, because Marcus was not a private scholar in a walled garden. Marcus was the emperor of Rome, and the Rome of his reign was a Rome under siege from every side. Consider the years leading to that pyre. In the year 161, when Antonines Pius died and Marcus took the throne, the Parthian Empire crossed the eastern border, invaded Armenia, and destroyed a Roman legion. Marcus sent Lucius east to answer. In the year 165, as the Eastern War concluded with victory, the returning soldiers brought back a disease which the ancient sources describe with the symptoms we now associate with smallpox, and which spread through the empire with a speed that emptied whole districts. The Antonine Plague, as it came to be called, would kill perhaps 5 million people over the following 15 years, and would kill them in a manner slow and disfiguring and public. In the year 166, as the plague was moving west, the Marcomanni and the Quadi, Germanic peoples, pressed by movements further north, crossed the Danube frontier in force, sacked Roman towns, and reached Italy itself for the first time in centuries. In the year 167, Marcus and Lucius marched north together to meet them. This was the pattern of his reign: plague and frontier, frontier and plague. He would spend the greater part of the years still to come in military camps along the Danube, in what is now Austria and Slovakia and Hungary, sleeping in tents in weather he was not born to, adjudicating between generals, receiving reports of dead legions and dying towns. He wrote the meditations in these camps. The Greek at the head of Book 2 records that it was written among the Quadi on the river Gran. The Greek at the head of Book 3 records that it was written at Carnuntum. These were not the notes of a man in leisure. These were the notes of a man who took, in the small hours before the day's work, the discipline of examining his own mind. And in the winter of 169, in the middle of this, Lucius died. The historians tell us the two emperors had been returning together from the Danube front to Rome. In the carriage near Altinum, Lucius suffered what Cassius Dio calls a stroke and lived only 3 days. Marcus brought the body back to the city. He arranged for the deification. He arranged for the funeral games. He stood before the pyre. Now hear what is difficult in this. The ancient sources are not silent on the character of Lucius Verus. He was, by all accounts, a man of pleasures. He kept a famous tavern in his palace, staffed with dice and dancers. He grew his beard in the Syrian fashion during the Eastern campaign and was mocked in Rome for it. He was accused by some of leaving the actual conduct of the Parthian War to his generals while he hunted and feasted at Antioch. Marcus, who was 10 years older, who had been prepared for rule from childhood, who had risen at dawn every day of his adult life to attend to the correspondence of empire, cannot have failed to notice the difference between his own habit and his brother's. And yet Marcus, upon Lucius's death, insisted upon full honors, full deification, full memory. He did not permit even the private notebooks to become a place of complaint against the dead. What he permitted the notebooks to become, instead, was a place of exercise. And the exercise, again and again, in the years that followed, was the equal treatment of praise and dissolution. Let us look at how the exercise appears on the page. In Book 4 of the Meditations, Marcus writes a passage that returns to him throughout the work, and which he seems almost to be practicing as one practices a scale. He writes, in Long's translation, "Consider, for example, the times of Vespasian. Thou wilt see all these things, people marrying, bringing up children, sick, dying, warring, feasting, trafficking, cultivating the ground, flattering, obstinately arrogant, suspecting, plotting, wishing for some to die, grumbling about the present, loving, heaping up treasure, desiring consulship, kingly power." Well then, that life of these people no longer exists at all. He is doing something specific here. He is placing himself, in imagination, at a distance from his own moment. He is asking what Vespasian's Rome looked like from the vantage of his own reign 100 years later. And he is answering himself. It looked like a great deal of activity that no longer exists. The consulships are ash. The marriages are ash. The plotting and the loving and the heaping up of treasure are ash. And then he turns the exercise upon himself. What will Marcus's Rome look like from the vantage of a century hence? The same, exactly the same. This is the shape of the practice. It is a movement of the mind from close to far, from the present moment to the long view, from the purple to the ash. He performs it in the notebooks upon Alexander the Great. He performs it upon Augustus. He performs it upon the courtiers who surrounded Hadrian, whom he calls, in one passage, those who caused Hadrian's sleepless nights, all now dead, all gone. He performs it upon the philosophers themselves, upon Heraclitus, and upon Democritus, and upon Socrates, and he does not exempt them from the ash. He performs it, most tellingly, upon himself. Soon, he writes, "Thou wilt have forgotten the world, and soon the world will have forgotten thee." The purpose of the exercise is not to induce despair. This is the point that is most often missed. Marcus does not conclude, from the meditation upon dissolution, that action is meaningless or that duty is void. He concludes the opposite. If the purple is ash, then the fear of losing the purple is a small thing. If the crowd's cheer will be forgotten, then the courting of the crowd's cheer is a small thing. If Marcus himself will be forgotten within a few generations, then the elaborate cultivations of image and legacy which occupy so much of a ruler's mind are small things. What remains, when these small things are seen for what they are, is the work of the present moment. What remains is the letter to be dictated, the case to be judged, the general to be advised, the son to be corrected, the meal to be eaten in moderation, the sleep to be taken, the rising at dawn to be performed once more. The equal treatment of praise and dissolution frees the mind for what is at hand. You may see this most clearly in a passage from Book 6, in which Marcus writes of the imperial purple itself. Long renders it thus: "This purple robe is a bit of sheep's wool stained with the blood of a shellfish." That is the whole sentence. He does not elaborate. He does not moralize. He states the thing. Now consider what this sentence is. Marcus is emperor. The purple stripe upon his toga, the full purple of his ceremonial robe, is the visible sign of his rank. It is the object for which men have poisoned brothers and murdered fathers. It is dyed with a pigment extracted, drop by drop, from the murex sea snail, at a cost so great that in his own century, a pound of the deepest purple cloth cost the wages of a laborer for many years. The purple is the concentrated sign of all worldly praise, and Marcus, seated in his tent among the Quadi, writing to himself before the day's business, describes the purple as wool stained with the blood of a shellfish. He is not being cynical. He is not being ironic. He is performing the exercise. He is stripping away the addition. He is seeing the thing itself: wool, blood, shellfish, the concentrated pigment of the sea. That is what the purple is. What men have added to it in the way of longing and awe is the addition, and the addition is where the trouble lives. Now perform the same operation upon the pyre. What is a funeral pyre? Wood, seasoned and stacked. A body, cooling. Fire, which is the rapid oxidation of matter. Ash, which is the mineral remainder. This is the thing itself. What men have added to it, in the way of dread and grief, is the addition. And Marcus, standing before the pyre of his brother, was performing upon that pyre the same operation he performed upon the purple. He was seeing the wool. He was seeing the wood. He was seeing that the two were, in the final accounting, the same material at different stages of the same process. This is what is meant by the equal treatment of praise and dissolution. Not that praise does not matter, and not that dissolution does not matter, but that both are moments in a single, continuous fact about the world, and that the mind which distinguishes them too sharply is a mind that has added something to what is there. We are told by the historians of the reign that after Lucius's funeral, Marcus returned almost at once to the northern frontier. The Marcomannic Wars were not concluded. The plague had not passed. He had a war to finish and an empire to hold, and he would spend most of the remaining 11 years of his life in the field. He wrote much of the meditations during those years, and it is worth noting how often, in those pages, he returns to the practice we have described. He returns to it in the mornings, before the day. He returns to it in the evenings, before sleep. He returns to it when he is angry with a courtier, when he is grieved by a report from the front, when he is tempted to receive too warmly the flatteries of those around him. The practice is not for Marcus a doctrine held once and finished. It is a discipline performed daily, like the rising, like the correspondence, like the review of dispatches. He does not master it. He returns to it. There are passages in the Meditations where you may see him struggling with anger, with weariness, with the pull of grief, with the desire to be well thought of by his contemporaries and by posterity. He does not pretend otherwise. He writes to himself repeatedly of his own failings. Even in a palace, he writes, life may be led well. He writes this because he has felt in the palace that it might not be. He writes to himself of the necessity of not being angry with those who have wronged him. And he writes this because he has been angry. He writes to himself of the shortness of fame. And he writes this because he has felt the pull of the long fame he will not have. The exercise is a labor. The equal treatment of praise and dissolution is not a state achieved and held. It is a movement of the mind performed again each morning against the constant reappearance of the addition. Let us now name plainly what the philosopher is teaching. Marcus is teaching you that the mind has a habit so constant that we do not usually notice it, of adding to bare appearances a set of estimations. The estimation that this is good, the estimation that that is bad, the estimation that praise is to be pursued and dissolution to be fled. These estimations are not neutral. They arrange the mind's whole activity around themselves. They make the pursuit of praise into a lifetime's work, and they make the fear of dissolution into a lifetime's shadow. And Marcus is teaching you that these estimations are, in the strictest sense, additions. They are not in the wool, they are not in the ash, they are placed there by the mind, and they may, by discipline, be seen for what they are, and thereby loosened. The teaching is not that praise is bad and dissolution is good. That would be a reversal, not a resolution. The teaching is that both are the material of the world, and that the mind's business is to treat them as material and to do within them the work that is at hand. Notice what this leaves the wise man free to do. He is free to accept the purple, if the purple is what duty has placed upon his shoulders, without becoming the servant of the purple. He is free to stand at the pyre of one he has loved, without adding to the fire the further burden of a grief that does not know when to end. He is free to receive the crowd's cheer without arranging his life around its recurrence. He is free to be forgotten by history without arranging his life around being remembered. He is, in a word, free. The freedom Marcus is teaching is not freedom from feeling. He felt. The notebooks make plain that he felt. The freedom he is teaching is freedom from the addition, the freedom to see the wool as wool and the ash as ash, and to act within that seeing according to what reason and duty require. There is a further point which the exercise contains and which deserves to be stated. When Marcus treats praise and dissolution as equal, he is not making a claim about the value of a human life. He is not saying that Lucius, alive, was no more than Lucius, dead. He is saying something more precise. He is saying that the purple upon Lucius and the ash of Lucius are not the measure of Lucius. The measure of Lucius, insofar as Lucius had a measure, was in his acts as a rational being, in his conduct of duty, in his treatment of those around him. The purple was decoration. The pyre was aftermath. The man himself, whatever he had been, was in what he did with the rational faculty that was given to him. And this measure applies equally to the flatterer at court and to the beggar in the street. It applies equally to Marcus and to his groom. Alexander and his groom, we recall, came to the same. This is the deep egalitarianism of the Stoic view, and it is worth pausing upon it because it sits uneasily with the position from which Marcus wrote. He was the emperor of Rome. He held slaves. He commanded armies. He was raised within a system of extreme hierarchy, and he did not, in his political life, dismantle that system. The Stoic principle he practiced in private stood in a relation of tension with the office he executed in public. He knew this. The tension appears in the notebooks. He does not resolve it. He continues day by day to practice the exercise and to execute the office and to hold the two in a hand that could not fully close around either. We do not need to resolve it for him either. We can note the tension and observe how a man of his position practiced what he practiced within it, and take from his practice what is available to be taken. What then do you carry away from the pyre in the Campus Martius from the emperor who did not weep as the crowd expected. You carry perhaps a question about your own additions. Consider what you have added this week to bare appearances. A message received and read, a word spoken by another and given a weight it may or may not deserve, a number in a ledger, a face in a mirror, a memory of praise received or of praise withheld, a fear of some future dissolution, of the body or of the reputation or of the arrangements of your life. Consider how much of what has moved through your mind this week has been the thing itself, and how much has been the addition. You carry, perhaps, the image of the wool. The purple robe of the emperor is wool stained with the blood of a shellfish. Whatever is the purple in your own life, whatever object of longing or of dread has arranged your recent hours, is also, in the final accounting, its material. What is it made of? What was there before the addition? What will remain when the addition falls away? You carry, perhaps, the image of the fire. Marcus stood before a fire that was consuming the body of the man he had called brother, and he did not turn away, and he did not add to the fire the further fire of a grief that refused to acknowledge what a fire is. He saw the wood, he saw the flame, he saw the ash that would remain, and then he returned to the frontier, and to the work of the day, and to the notebooks in which, morning after morning, he performed the exercise again. The question the philosopher would set before you, if he set one at all, is not whether you will achieve the equal treatment of praise and dissolution. He did not achieve it in any final sense. He practiced it. The question is whether you will practice it, whether tomorrow morning, before the day begins its arrangement of your attention, you will take a few moments to see one thing as it is, without the addition, and to hold it there in the mind until the addition falls away, and to proceed then to the work that is at hand. The pyre in the Campus Martius went out in time. The ash was gathered. The urn was placed in the mausoleum of Hadrian, where it would rest with the ashes of emperors and their kin, and where, in the centuries that followed, other ashes would be placed beside it, and the mausoleum itself would be converted to a fortress, and the names upon the urns would be forgotten by all but a few scholars. Marcus's own ashes, in time, would join them. What remains of Marcus is not the ash. What remains of Marcus is not, in truth, even the purple. What remains of Marcus is a set of private notebooks, written in Greek, in tents along a river, by a man who was practicing each morning the exercise of seeing wool as wool and ash as ash, and who left behind, for us, the record of that practice. That record is what you have received tonight. What you do with it from tomorrow morning forward is the addition that will or will not be made.